Yeah,
No, I think we're at seriously at least 3 years, 3+ years, Davio, being Instagram buds here. I felt like I've been able to surround myself with some really awesome people, characters. We just used the word earlier. Uh, The idea here, if this continues, will be to talk to them one on one. Maybe we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try and pry some of their insight out if possible. And some of the things we talk about are friends and seekers of better truth than we were given can just run with it sometimes. And I'm just as guilty. I have a few times over the years. So
sure.
when it comes
We
to,
all have
but
confirmation bias, it's the that's the toughest. It's not the cognitive dissonance, it's the confirmation bias. You know,
those echo chambers,
that's right. It's like, you know, exactly.
the confirmation bias that we're talking about um, was even stronger, probably like 2020, 2021, where just like everyone was almost jumping on board to, I don't know, quick. Anyways, we're more seasoned at this point, and we're not hopefully jumping on board and just falling for those same uh, pitfalls like we used to. I saw some pretty good evidence as to why we were probably being lied to certain degrees about the information regarding dinosaurs. And, um, you know, like all these subjects, they're very nuanced, and what made it also easy to just fall into this bigger claim that all the dinosaurs they were teaching us about and all the dinosaurs they're showing in museums are all fake. And none of those, yeah, are real, and it's all a big lie. And it gets, uh, it falls into some territory where then all of a sudden you're saying things now that are like, wait, hold up, because we do have evidence of lots of bones and up. So at this point, let me get this whiteboard going. And that was a little rough, but I don't know if you have anything you want to add here. Go for it.
Uh, no, I think that's a good little, intro, a kind of little entree to the subject. Uh, it is. I think it's an important. I think this dinosaur thing is the or fossils thing is kind of interesting just because of what you were talking about in terms of uh, people who they might be kind of like hip to this truther thing and or that truther thing or whatever and stuff, and then you get this like sort of curveball, that all the dinosaurs never existed, all the fossils are fake, thrown at you, and how it seems like so many people have taken this bait, this kind of nonsensical bait without truly. I mean, it's the sort of thing that can only be swallowed without having made the slightest effort. Like a person having, if you, these anybody who believes, who buys this hasn't made the slightest effort.
Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
just, sorry to throw
Yeah.
you off there,
So
because what you're getting at there is very important. It's, it's basically the whole claim, oh, we're doing do the research. It's like, well,
yeah, yeah. I mean, where's the research? I mean, it's just like the, like flat Earth or something. All it takes is the slightest effort to realize, to figure out that you're not on a spinning ball, right?
yeah, I guess that one is on the other foot. You're still over there, not knowing that. Where, yeah, and we know how that goes. People don't want to see those facts. I was just this started, man. Let's see if I can get this bigger somehow. This started probably before. Well, I mean, I've always known your background and we've had plenty of conversations, but I shared this meme at one point and you kind of DM me and you were like, bro, what are you doing?
That
And
might have been like, maybe the start or something.
can you see it?
No, I remember that one, of course.
Yeah. So, and then I was like, and the funny thing is that was like 800 likes. That was probably the biggest post ever as far
Oh,
as
no shit.
likes go on this meme. It says to this day, a complete dinosaur skeleton has never been found. And that's kind of like, one of these big points that everyone's going around saying is there's no um, full scale, all the complete sets of these dinosaurs. There's fake, um, plastered bones and all that in there,
Right.
and a lot
Ground
of
up
this,
chicken bones.
yeah, and so a lot of this information is coming from this Eric Dubay video, The Dinosaurs Never Existed. Anyways, the Eric Dubay conclusion uh, points summarizes, brings it to 5 points at the end, and they
Right.
are, I wrote them down. So the first claim he makes is a complete dinosaur skeleton has never been found. Well, the fact of the matter is, I mean, this is where if you want to just kind of help refute his first claim was a complete dinosaur skeleton has never been found. How do
Yeah.
you feel about that statement?
Well, this is, verifiably, untrue, you know. Uh, like complete dinosaur skeletons. You just type into, the internet, even the most kind of rudimentary search, will turn up, you know, incredibly complete dinosaur skeletons.
Yeah, but
Just
if you're already just slanted, everything's a lie, everything's we've been lied to about everything. Eric Dubay was right about flat Earth. Now he's telling me the dinosaurs aren't real. Why would I believe that? Of course, Google's owned by them. The I mean, I think that's kind of how the laziness is working at this moment. As far as, I mean, did we dip into what's your background on this conversation? Why, you know, what's your special
well,
interest?
I mean, dinosaurs and fossils were kind of like my earliest, obsession or passion or whatever. Dinosaurs and drawing and stuff like that. So, that was pretty much, from when I was like, like a tot, like a little tot. So, and then when I was a teenager, you know, I so my mother used to take me to the museum, in Denver all the time when I was, a kid and stuff. I just loved that place, it was kind of like home away from home anyway. And so when I turned 13, she saw that I was just becoming like, a bored teenager. So she, one day she took me, down to the Denver Museum, the Natural History Museum, and we just kind of marched into the Earth Science Department office there. We just, she's opened the door and we walked in, to the Earth Science Department, and she was asking, the first guy we met was, the head of the department, this guy named Richard Stuckey, who's a wonderful guy. But anyway, and she's like, hey, can you take my kid? Do something with my kid. Can you
That's awesome.
volunteer or something?
That's great.
Anyway, so that's how my association, as it were, with the Denver Museum and
They said
uh,
yes, they took you. That
Yeah,
young?
yeah. I mean, like just like, I didn't have to do anything. I did nothing, I didn't do anything. I just, they're just like, okay, just come in whenever you want. Literally. So like this was when the museum had just gotten like a like they built, had a paleontology, lab or whatever built, and this is right around when they started, it was before they even started building they redid their big, dinosaur, all the skeletons, the mammals, the dinosaurs, all the fossil stuff. They redid their exhibit. So this was even before. I mean, this is like 1990 or even like 89 or something. Uh, you know, when I got started. Anyway, so
Okay.
basically, I just had I just had the run of the place, like the whole museum, like,
It's amazing.
I with my little volunteer badge around my neck, some goofy picture of me, 13-year-old me. Yeah, I just I did whatever I wanted. It was hilarious,
Was there others like you? Do
No, just me.
That's awesome. Wow.
Isn't that funny? It was
Yeah.
just me. I was the only, I mean, there
So
was nobody even
that's
close to my age. They were all old enough to be either my parents or my grandparents.
I never really understood that part of the story. So when you were meeting people at times, you were like really still a young guy. You were meeting
Oh yeah,
somebody
yeah, yeah. I was
big.
still like, junior high, high school, you
You've
know.
kind of name dropped before. A couple paleontologists and also like artists,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
dinosaur artists,
yeah.
and this was all through this experience to a degree. Or
No, no, no. Yeah, all.
wait, so did you go to school for it?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Um, and then how long would you say your span of hanging out and understanding in that experience lasted?
It was about 13 years.
13 years, yeah. So, and then you developed a little bit of cynicism with some of the things being taught and all that uh early on, halfway through, at the end. How did that work out afterwards?
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly during, I mean, I got to know a lot of people, like in a lot of different departments, at the museum. Um, and I just kind of watched the place become more and more sort of corporatized because it wasn't that way. It was kind of just a free for all. Like nobody cared about anything.
Hmm.
Like as far as like, committees and like, staff meetings, there wasn't any of that shit. I just watched it progress, more and more and more to that direction, especially like after, the big giant, prehistoric journey exhibit opened, then, it just got more and more, just kind of corporate, the place. It didn't have, and a lot of people left, that worked there. Um, anyway, it just got kind of ridiculous. I mean, by that point, I was in like kind of like my, mid-20s or something. And, I had like a couple of, I had several different, I worked there as an illustrator. I worked there, I taught a class, a class that my own devising on, my class was on anatomy and kind of the history of dinosaur art and stuff like that. But it was all about, it was about dinosaur anatomy, that's what I taught, these people, and we, I had people like sculpting, musculature, onto a sort of like a blank skeleton, dinosaur skeleton. So we would go through all the muscles and sculpt them onto the figure and stuff, you know.
You were teaching
So,
at at the museum?
yeah.
That's cool. You had younger people coming for those or mixed bag, I'm sure.
No, it was all it was it was all like, people who are older than me, for sure. You know.
And I mean, so the you're tying anatomy into the art of these
Yeah, yeah.
these animals that we didn't see the tendons and the veins. We found the bones, right? We find the bones and then the
uh,
art comes after. It's an interesting conversation. And so real quick,
sure.
yeah, it needs to be said that you are a when I first started following your account, you were Davio watercolor. Now I think your handle is art by Davio, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, you're the man. You're quite the artist. Watercolor seems to be your thing. We're funny because I don't know anything about your expertise, your areas of expertise. Like I'm literally shouldn't even be trying to have conversations with you, but at the same time, I'm still going to. And yeah, your artwork is awesome. Make sure and check it out on Instagram, Art by Davio. And he had, I think when you've shown me a lot of stuff that I've been seeing since following you. You were definitely focused on like um kind of like ballet artwork for a while. There was a period of time, but lately, or I don't know where you're at. I have no idea. You could say better than I, but you definitely make a lot of dinosaur paintings and art, and yeah, so that's your thing. You're probably as good of any as a critic. You can critique dinosaur art through the years. You've seen how it's evolved. It's almost comedic to a degree, like you're saying. Also, with the like just over marketing of the whole dinosaur world, and
Yeah. It's certainly it's obviously part of pop culture for sure. Obviously, I mean Godzilla. You know.
yeah, I mean, so that conversation of who gets to decide what a dinosaur looks like, and where it's very interesting. It's like at one point it kind of started, the game started, and you've that was the first depiction, and it's been evolving ever since. It keeps kind of
Yeah.
like anything. There's like a style to it per decade. You were kind of telling me at some, to a
Okay.
degree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The most recent, the last decade or whatever. It's taken a turn for the worst aesthetically. I think the dinosaur art. I mean, they just look kind of ridiculous now. They just kind of look like pudgy. I don't even know why they all kind of look like frauds or something. I don't know. I mean, they went from these very dynamic, active, things that are always roaring and ripping apart each other and stuff to these just sort of shapeless blobs. So it's like Barney, you know.
mm,
So I personally, think that the accuracy, of portrayals of extinct things, especially like stuff as weird as like dinosaurs and stuff. I would tend, to think that it comes down to one's preference. Really, you know, it's not so much that it's like scientifically accurate because that's nonsense at the end of the day. It comes down to one's own, taste, I suppose, and I find the current style in the dinosaur artwork, and it's all done on computers. It's all just like you know it's all computer art, digital art. Nowadays, like there's hardly anybody that has a pencil or a brush or anything. Um, so it's just gotten a hell of a lot more boring. It's just very dull. Like I don't know.
yeah. So many
Yeah, I know. I
things.
know. It's like it is a huge subject and a very interesting one. I mean, that's kind of a little off the subject,
The
you
art.
know, the, Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, see, the thing is like we know that art is fake. Okay, it's not real. It's just a picture. Fossils and stuff, on the other hand, are the sort, these are the bones of contention, right? These are the things that the validity or the existence, even being disputed. I would say, unjustly, unfairly,
Yeah.
don't don't defame and blaspheme my beloved fossils.
Do you have them? Do you have any at your house?
Yeah, I do. Of course, I used to have a hell of a lot more, but I've moved so many times that I had to just kind of lose all my stuff. Books, fossils, like I had a massive fossil collection, Sal. It was massive.
I think like what you're getting at there though, that the paint, the artwork is a different story. It's still your story and a good tie-in. And so
Sure.
the teaser part is good. I think there was enough in there that I can work with that explains, okay, you got that background, and then if I could add some of your pictures in, we're good. And then
Sure.
we'll do another one here. And um I still, yeah, I only went through one Dubay point. He's got four other ones.
I mean, we really didn't even like get to. Well, we'll try.
It's a good take, and I need to take your advice on it. He's art by Davio on Instagram. Um, hopefully, as this comes across, it'll come across more fluent. But we are breaking up a couple conversations here, and coming back to them after like a day's break. We spoke yesterday. We brought up the Eric Dubay video, and we were kind of using that as just something to talk about. And
Yeah.
he makes 5 points at the end of his video, and we talked about one of the points, which was, he's claimed that a complete dinosaur skeleton has never been found, and we were on, that's, it was hard for you to even address that because it's such a kind of ludicrous claim, with the overwhelming amount of evidence you've seen in your lifetime.
Well, I was thinking about that a bit. Okay, so he's claiming no complete dinosaur skeleton has ever been found, and I would the way I would respond to that is that so I mean there have been complete dinosaur skeletons, but if the last tail vertebra is missing, well, that's incomplete, isn't it? You have all the rest of it, but you're missing one tail, the last tail vertebra or something, or one, part of a rib or something, inconsequential like that, you know. The utter completeness, I mean, I think is kind of a you know a silly point, it's a silly demand, you know. I mean, you can go dig up, human skeletons, in mass graves and stuff like that. Not every bone, is necessarily preserved. I mean, there's, some bones are more cartilage than, they have more cartilage than bone to them, right? And so those things are going to rot away faster and not be preserved.
I think if, yeah, I don't think it's, I think it's a nitpicky point if with
I
an
agree.
agenda, with an agenda to it. Without an agenda, it's like we can all make room for what you're talking about here. Of
Yeah.
course, there's explanation for why something could be missing. So there's more going on than just one find, one dig. You're using many digs, much all the cross examination evidence, and um, he definitely has this agenda at hand. The video title we're talking about is what is it? No dinosaurs existed or something like that.
Dinosaurs never existed, I think, is
Yeah, the dinosaurs never existed.
yeah, it never existed. Yes,
Um, so
the Freemasons did it all, right?
I
But
I kind of have in my mind order of maybe how this might go today, even though already I'm like, oh, now I want to go somewhere else because of how this can go. Um, the Yeah, that leads to this. Why would we be possibly discussing their existence or not? I'm also thinking about how we're gonna have instantly people jumping on to this and saying, well, yeah, there are bones, but they're all dragons. And a lot of our community likes to just jump onto the mythical thing, creatures, and
I,
um
I
that
find that highly amusing. Yeah.
that's what they're hiding. And yeah, so
Right. Yeah.
you know, we have, the quickest way we can inform people to a degree is going to be helpful for presenting kind of the take you have here. How could you try and explain how it's verifiable that you're looking at fossils and bones that are distinguishable between what we have nowadays and the type of creatures, animals, whatever you call them, we have nowadays. Um, Yet, yeah, they speak to like, well, the larger thing is the big evident one. Like you're probably talking about larger to a degree scales of fossils.
Yeah.
Some sometimes. Okay, maybe I should stop talking here and you can take over. You can help me out here. But that's the thing. Like, how is it that from your vantage point, everything you've seen, it's just like clearly we're talking about something that no longer exists here. They're extinct,
Yeah.
and then we can also put them into their own category, which is like large reptile or whatever it is, and
Right.
and then that leads us to okay, well, I guess then we can get to okay, when was it they were here? But at the very first, we can say this for sure is our own set. We do have nearly complete, and like we just made the point of the to say there's no complete ones is just kind of like a nitpicky point. All right, there you go. Sorry.
Well, see, the thing is, I mean, I mean, when in reality, I mean, it's like there's a super abundance of of fossils. They're not rare, right? They're not rare. They've been found by every, Tom, Dick, and Harry, tripped over digging the foundation for a house, or, just washing out of a, cliffside or something like that. Um, so I mean, like the museums, uh, that are, in every country all over the earth, the museums, they're collection rooms, and I've been to a number of these, in my day, um, not just the Denver Museum, but I mean, it's just shelf after shelf, drawers. I mean, just lined with fossil bones, fossils of every sort. So like the rarity thing, is really a myth because they're not rare.
Okay, but
Um,
Eric Dubay said they're making fake bones. So the only reason I'm interjecting that here is to say, with you, almost late '80s getting involved, early '90s, you can kind of arguably say you were around before that conversation got amplified. Like so, what you're saying is there's real bones everywhere in these museums, overflowing with real bones,
yeah,
and
they
you.
have too much. I mean, they couldn't possibly display them all. I mean,
But I'm
I
just
mean,
trying to
they
say,
could, but it'd be like every square inch is taken. I mean,
I'm trying to just be a cynical conspiracy theorist coming in saying, but how do we know all those bones are not coming out of the China bone
right.
making factories?
Well, it is the case that the discovery, unearthing of these fossils, fossil skeletons, whether it's like whole skeletons or just individual bones or fragments and stuff like that. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, uh, and if you just want to like take like what you can see in like places like museums, stuff like that, as an example. I mean, a lot of these museums go back, to the you know sometime in the 19th century, 18th century, if you want to, without calling into question, the legitimacy of the timeline we've been given, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the collecting of this stuff and describing it, has been goes back a long way. Dinosaurs weren't just, or giant mammals. I don't know why, Eric Dubay, doesn't call into question, call all those fake. Why aren't the mammoths and mastodons and woolly rhinoceroses and saber-toothed cats, why are those real? And all the dinosaurs are fake. They're all, grinding up chicken bones and horse bones and making, these fake bones. How is it that, okay, so, the one entire class is okay. The mammals, the giant mammals, even the medium-sized mammals or whatever, and all this, the entire other category, the dinosaurs, they're all fake. How is it that, where's the distinction? I don't understand, like, where somebody like him draws that line. Because, like, if you're going to call one thing fake, you might as well just throw it all in the, throw the baby out with the bathwater. And,
Yeah, no, I see the point you're making. I see it, and I can't claim to know what the line of thought is there.
yeah, well, I couldn't possibly either. I mean, I so here's an interesting thing. So when I first started hanging around at the Denver Museum, so they were dismantling all the dinosaur and mammal skeletons that had been standing in the museum, I think since like the 1930s. That's when the stuff originally went up, the skeletal mounts and stuff like that. So they were taking everything down, to put up their new and improved, prehistoric life exhibit,
And
right? They wanted to update it, modernize it, all that stuff. Like, instead of the dinosaurs, tail dragging on the ground, now they stuck it up in the air, right? It's modern. Whatever, I mean, so, so I was around when they were taking down all the skeletons that had been there since the 1930s. And these were beautiful skeletal mounts, and they were the original, they were the actual fossils. And see these, okay, so the method they used to mount these the actual fossil bones, and we're talking big skeletons, like big giant sauropods, like brontosaurus, like they had a big giant duck-billed dinosaur, a plesiosaurus, the thing with the big long neck and the flippers, like the Loch Ness monster kind of animal, etc. In addition to like all, like mammoths and mastodons and giant camels, and they have all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so these were the original fossils, and they were mounted, using like basically the supports for these things, because these things are solid rock. I mean, they weigh a ton. Like a femur, the vertebra. I mean, these are big fossils, and so they were using iron supports, which were very beautifully kind of wrought. It was like a work of art itself. Because it kind of disappeared into the, you really didn't see that they were mounted on these heavy iron, very heavy iron supports.
okay,
Because that's what it took. I mean,
just custom fabricated iron,
yeah, yeah. so all these skeletons, and anyway, so they took it all down, and what they did is they set about casting all of it in this stuff called WEP, which is kind of like a some sort of really toxic resin goop. They didn't do it in plaster because plaster is it's very fragile and delicate, and you can get really fine detail in plaster, but like they used this stuff because it was far more lightweight, right? You can drill it, you can stick the metal supports like through the bones and stuff like that. It's just so much easier. So that's what they and I was there for all that too, the casting of all these original skeletons.
Right.
Um,
Point being,
okay, go ahead.
well, keep going if you. Sorry to stop your flow.
So that's I mean, so that's pretty much 100% of the reason why if you walk into museums with more recent that are more recent, that don't go back to like the turn of the century or the 1920s or 30s or something like this, it's basically it's just so much easier to mess around with and position and do whatever you want with casts of bones, rather than the actual things that weigh ridiculous. I mean, for some gigantic skeleton, I mean, you're talking tons and tons of rocks. There's just the stuff weighs so much, and it's so much more work. So they cast them in these lightweight materials and put those out on display. Because in addition, like the actual fossils, the condition varies a great deal, from one fossil to the next or whatever. Some of them can they could literally just start falling apart while they're on display. I mean, because these
Oh wow.
they're not just like solid permanent things. They're just going to last forever or whatever. A lot of them are very delicate. Like huge giant ribs and stuff like this. I mean, you're talking about something that could easily get broken, easily. Skulls and whatnot, like and it's certainly the case. Some of these things have just started. That's what was happening. With these skeletons at the Denver Museum, they were just starting to deteriorate and just kind of fall apart. Like a lot of fossils, a lot of those fossils, and just a lot of fossils in general are all, so they're the fossilized bone on the outside, kind of the skin, but inside it's all calcite crystals. It's just like crystal. And so they're not just like solid fossil. A lot of them, the inside of the thing has been replaced, and that's a lot of what like kind of weakens the structure of of the fossil itself. Is just the nature of the way it's been preserved. Filled with all these calcite crystals. They're like gemstones on the inside. It's kind of funny, if you like break a femur in half or something like that, you would see this. You see it all the time, and even like all the marine fossils, the shells and the cephalopod, and all the bryozoan stuff, like where like in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, all this so-called Ordovician, all these Ordovician fossils. The Ordovician, in the geologic time scale, is basically the second period. It's the second, of period of life on Earth, according to the geologic time scale. So this stuff is supposed to be like 450 million years old. All these shells and all the bryozoa is like, do you know what bryozoa is? It's sort of like a coral like thing. There's just gobs of it, in like the area, in like Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio.
I've been looking at that name. I've come across it. I've been looking up here, you know, right
Well,
next
so
door to me. There's this national park, and there is tons of stuff. You got me realizing I do need to be more up with what's here, right here where I live. All
I'll
kinds of.
tell you, I'll tell you, man. Like, anyway, so like, I collected just tons of the fossils of these fossils when I lived, up by Cincinnati. Tons of this stuff. Anyway, like, and like, it's all like if you break stuff open or you find it broken or whatever, like it's full of calcite crystals on the inside. All those fossils. So it's not just like dinosaur fossils. There's nothing special about dinosaur fossils that makes them somehow different from any other kind of fossil you might find, whether it's seashells or mammals or whatever. Um, they've all got this sort of like odd, but I mean it's not like 100% of the time, but a lot of them are just filled with like calcite crystals and that sort of thing.
I follow. Yeah, I'm just ignorant to, all of them together. So, I haven't messed with, it wasn't my pastime growing up like yours, it was.
Well, it's a blast. You gotta get out there, man. It is a blast. It's like you're in another world, man. It really is.
Yeah, I had an uncle in Upper Peninsula. We would go looking for copper. That's closest I ever got to anything like this. Um,
Was he
so
breaking down? Was he busting up like what Wi-Fi towers or something? No, I'm kidding.
that was just that was their thing to do over there.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi towers were not around back. They
No,
were not around back then.
I get that, I know.
All right, let's keep on because we're already looking at this convo wrapping up. So, the timeline discrepancy or this picture I have here, which is a timeline discrepancy, but I don't think we can even touch that. So I'm just gonna pretend
Okay.
like it's not gonna end here. And so
Well, so
the second Dubay claim, which obviously is, you almost already covered, but maybe you can do it again because we can always do better, and you can again kind of brush over who you are in this field because his second claim is no independent researcher has seen a real dinosaur skull. And that was
or
one.
dinosaur, or dinosaur fossil, I think is what he claims. No independent researcher. Yes, that museums just deny any request for access. They just deny out of hand anybody who's not a specialist, right?
Mhm.
With a special interest
That's the
in
claim.
this stuff. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, so I mean I was 13 years old when I started as a volunteer at the Denver Museum of Natural History. I was 13 years old. This was back in like 1989, 1990 or something like that. My mother marched me into the Earth Science Department one day because, I loved the museum, grew up, going there, tons and tons. So, she just brought me into the Earth Science Department one day at the museum. We just walked in. Nobody knew who we were. We weren't invited. We weren't anything. Anyway, and she said, hey, can my kid, come hang out here because he has no friends in school and he just loved dinosaurs and stuff and fossils. At that point, I'd never, I never found a fossil. I'd never looked for a fossil. But I had a whole bunch of dinosaur books, and I was obsessed with stuff. I drew dinosaurs and nothing but dinosaurs. I didn't even want to draw mammals because, I thought mammals were stupid. So I only cared about.
I
I only
was
cared
drawing
about
elephants as a little kid, okay?
That's all right. I like sharks and stuff and whales as well,
Hmm.
but those aren't mammals. I just thought mammals were inferior, and I kind of still do. But
It's funny.
okay, so I had no, I had nothing, to set me apart as like some specialist with a vested interest in, evolutionary biology and Darwinism, and just presenting to the public, the party line of evolution and whatever, So, I was just a kid. So, but I got I got to go anywhere I wanted. Nobody was supervising me. It wasn't a daycare. I roamed around in their collections in the back rooms. I just, I sat around like, photocopying, the head of the paleontology department's, entire library. I would just grab all this piles of books and scientific papers and stuff and go photocopy it all on the museum's dime. So that's but so I got to handle, anything I wanted, they had a fossil lab there, the paleontology lab, where there's like kind of a team of mostly elderly volunteers, preparing fossils with the little air scribes, and the little dental picks and stuff like that. They just sit there all day, every day, doing this stuff. All these things in the plaster jackets, prepping it out. And I did that. I didn't like doing that. It was really, it's really boring, tedious work. So I tried, I didn't do a whole lot of that, just because it was boring, I prefer just to kind of like socialize and, just kind of get into trouble, that kind of thing. Go bother people,
But it's safe to say you saw dinosaur fossils and the
tons,
a skull specifically. Have you seen a dinosaur skull? Have you?
I've seen tons. I mean, like all the stuff that was on display, at the museum that they dismantled the entire, their entire old exhibit from like the 1930s or whatever the stuff originally went up. So, I definitely got to, you know, mess around, handle, look at, whatever, skulls, skeletons, it was all just laying around, it was all just like on huge, like, shelves, you know, just laying out, waiting to be cast and put back on display, which is what happened.
So there's definitely more to this conversation than just straight up. You know, it's all fake. It's all fake and they never existed.
Yeah,
That's safe to say. And yeah, you got a minute 30 here. If you want to keep going, I can schedule one right away. I think we should personally.
sure,
I think if we're gonna jump right into the next one, and we're just gonna use this last minute to talk strategy, uh,
sure.
I would say I'd like to like start figuring out now how to make the conspiracy theorists feel right about it all. Like, okay, this guy's showing me there is bones. Now, what is the story? What is going on? Why is there need to be lies and fake bones? And we should
Yeah,
really also, bring a little clarity of what we're talking about, this idea of the fake bones. Um, where does that come from? Because it's valid. It's a valid something to talk about. So,
yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know exactly. Maybe it's this paper or something that Dubay cites in that video, because he says he makes reference to some paper that was supposedly scrubbed from the internet that's alleging that all the stuff is fake, blah blah blah. But I mean, I really don't know who originated this.
so
So
on the hour, it looks like 20-minute break. It's easier to set the meeting up on the hour. Is that okay?
sure,
Thank you, Davio. See you soon.
right. So one other point I would say is about the claim that the fossils are fake, and how do we know, how do we know they're real, right? Um, it's kind of funny that uh, you know, one can just like sign up to go like volunteer like at fossil digs and stuff like that. These things, these museum, groups, or people, they always need volunteers to dig up, to
Yeah.
do all this like slave labor,
Mhm.
with shovels. And I mean, it's just in some place that's like hot as hell. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, like school kids, like they have like school kid groups, like at dig sites, like all the time. I mean, this is like, and one can just go to their local museum, if they have a museum that does this kind of stuff, and volunteer, to go, dig up whatever they're digging up with them. So,
There's
you know,
lots of ways the average layman can get their hands and eyes on fossils. And
yeah, and or your average, conspiracy lover who has bought into that dinosaurs are fake and that fossils are fake and all that stuff. It's like, okay, as you were saying earlier, yesterday, everybody's always like tossing about, do your own research and all that and stuff. Well, it's like, well, prove it to yourself, I would say to whoever,
you know,
uh, is believing in this, fake dinosaur business, fake fossils.
well,
Don't be lazy. Yeah.
for the sake of argument and how we got here, all of a sudden we started realizing we were programmed under the wrong pretenses, you know, regarding a lot of things. And then when the dinosaurs came up, it seemed like, you know, easy to just, okay, that jump on that bandwagon too. Whereas again, you have a background that I would, arguably no the majority does not have. And um not to call you a nerd or anything, but a lot
Oh,
of a lot of
yeah.
people maybe choose to not spend too much time in the dinosaur conversation, for other reasons than just conspiracy reasons. It's not their cup of tea or whatever. um
Yeah.
i I kind of to a degree have a little bit of that inclination in me. It's, I see little kids and stuff with all their dinosaurs, and they're memorizing all the names and stuff and their
Yeah.
attributes. And well, that leads I think we had this conversation once about the names and who gets to name them. These modern classification that the paleontologists have come up with. Um,
Are you talking about just like the individual names of like dinosaurs or something like that?
yeah, dinosaurs in general.
Or
Yes.
the word dinosaur?
What's,
Like
what's
which
that?
one? Like what are you talking about? Like just the word dinosaur or the just names of different kinds of dinosaurs?
Well, it starts with the word dinosaur, we could say. I don't have anything I'm actually pointing at asking, so
Oh,
we can try and gracefully take this wherever it goes next. But the
well, was there a next question on the Dubay question list?
well, okay, so the recap, a couple points that Davio has helped me come to see better. There is this there's an abundance of fossils. So to claim, like Eric Dubay claimed, there has never been a complete dinosaur skeleton ever found. We went over how that is um, maybe nitpicking on sometimes there might be a this or that little piece of the entire skeleton missing. Yet at the end of the day, we do in fact have entire skeletons. We also went over how he claimed no independent researcher, which, and you absolutely are an independent researcher, like the youngest ever. uh,
Maybe, I don't know.
No, for so no independent researcher has seen a real dinosaur skull was the claim, and you helped us see that's not true. You also helped me understand the original format of these museums and how when they were hanging these fossils or putting them on display, it was quite an undertaking. And the very big fossils like the Brontosaurus, they weighed a lot, they were bulky, they were cumbersome. You're talking about like custom iron holding, a holding system. You're calling them rods, I believe, or
Yeah, or just mounts, I guess, mounting,
yeah,
frame, the frame, that held the bones up and whatever.
yeah. So that was a big. It wasn't like you once you set that up, it was set in stone. To play on words to a degree until you said, excuse me, you said that some of these had been displayed since the 1930s, and then you entered the scene around 1990s. So, new techniques were coming out to display dinosaur, including the plasters, including yeah, kind of duplicating the look of the bone, and then you can move things around and change the set, so to speak, or whatever. Uh, so
Update and modernize. Lots of museums did this, and continue to do this actually, to update and modernize their, skeletal mounts and stuff like that. I think it's a shame because like these old skeletal mounts, whether they're, you know, whether they're thought to be wrong now or whatever, tails dragging on the ground or the limbs splayed out in some sort of reptilian way, instead of like straight, you know. Anyway, I think it's a shame to take all this down because like the stuff that they put back up, the casts and stuff, are always just so, the first, the original stuff had like, style, a real aesthetic and stuff. And the one, the stuff you see in museums, who've done this or whatever, the stuff just doesn't have like it's just not beautiful like the other in the way that the old stuff it's a totally different level of craftsmanship, workmanship, you know.
it's a theme, right? We could definitely talk about for a lot of things besides just how we're displaying our dinosaurs. Things seem to be more beautiful or more effort was put or whatever. I don't want to go down that conversation.
Oh yeah, yeah, they don't do it like that nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. So the next maybe this will bring this conversation where I'm hoping it goes, but the next thing he said, Dubay, was he claimed the paleontological scientific approach is built on hypotheses while it is presented as natural science with an objective approach. So it's built on hypotheses, but it's presented as like an objective science. It's like fact.
Yeah,
And
I would definitely classify paleontology, right up there with like psychology or something, sociology,
hmm,
as a soft science, not a hard science. It's not mathematics. Not that mathematics isn't just like, uh, it's not doesn't point to any kind of absolute truth or whatever or fact. But so, I think paleontology definitely it, other than like just digging the stuff up and like describing it, let's say like, some scientific paper, stuff like that, or trying to reconstruct what they looked like, because you can reconstruct, I'd say something like musculature and stuff like that based on just skeletal remains, fairly accurately. These
well,
extinct animals. But
Subjectively, I mean, who's to say? Well, fairly accurately, subjectively speaking, towards what we know already about
I
muscles
mean,
and bones.
of course, yeah. I mean, of course, it's not absolute because the whatever was beyond just like the bones and muscles. Of course, is long rotted away. Uh, Nobody's ever seen it, so what color they were, all that, sure, matter of speculation. Who cares? A lot can be known, just from the skeletal remains. Of course, a
Mhm.
lot can be known or deduced if you want to, call it that. But the rest of paleontology, is just massive speculation, conjecture. The entire evolutionary underpinning of paleontology. Of course, I mean evolution. Talk about something with more holes in it than a NASA spaceship. You know, I mean, so the theory of evolution has been destroyed 1,000 times in 1,000 ways, and but that's the underpinning of paleontology. It's a Darwinian, the Darwinian hypothesis, speculation. It's just a big
So let's
Darwinian metaphysics, right?
right. Let's give the conspiracy theorists something then here. So why are we saying the claim is they were 65 million, they were here 65 million years ago. Um I know you're on the page that's kind of a well, yeah, we haven't even talked about carbon dating. We haven't talked about if they were here all that time ago, why did we just start talking about them in the 1800s, 1850s? Um, this conversation, as we always say, go in a lot of ways. Again, I'll
Well,
give it right back to you.
oh yeah, well, no, I mean we can just kind of take them one point at a time. Of course,
Yeah, that's all we can do.
right. So which question would you like to address?
Um, well, I guess you were kind of rightfully taking jabs at evolutionary theory, and that led me to say to myself, well, okay, we're pointing out that doesn't add up. So part of the reason why conspiracy theorists so easily can jump on the idea the whole dinosaur storyline is a hoax is because it relies so much on evolutionary theory, which we also don't like to, in
Well,
our
yeah, well, or that it rests on a premise that's objectively wrong, incorrect.
okay, so what is going on with them, I guess, is kind of, whether it be theory or conjecture or whatever. How long ago were the animals here that we're finding the bones now? Um, I don't know, what's your take on why is it all blurry? Why is it not a more clear-cut conversation?
Oh, well, God, I mean, I wouldn't even hazard a guess as to how old they are or when they're from. I wouldn't even I wouldn't even have a guess. Yeah, I have no idea. No idea.
What's your take on
Clearly,
carbon
clearly
dating?
it's carbon dating. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on carbon dating, but my understanding of it is that it's you know, that itself, is also a deeply flawed method, well, of dating. It's very interesting, like Anatoly, Fomenko, his history, fact or fiction book, right? About that the timeline has been, had 1,000 years added to it, etc.
Right.
Anyway, he's got a very interesting chapter in that book where he just destroys, carbon dating as any possible, method by which to date anything at all. It's just, and then so it's the same story with the radiometric dating, and whoever's, interested, of course, can, easily look into, those subjects, carbon dating, dating of fossils, all that stuff, dating of whatever. Uh, anyway, the information is readily available as to why these things fail any kind of as any kind of scientific test. You
Hmm.
know, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I would love to hear. I've never heard anybody take a shot at trying to figure out when dinosaurs were around, other than the evolutionists. The alternative history or hidden history people. I've never seen anything. Not on like stolen history, .net or anywhere else. I've never seen anything, which I find kind of fascinating. What an oversight. Yeah, you know, I think there's enough videos about the buildings, of the past for the most part. How about the animals of the past?
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, that's a good point.
instead of just calling them dragons and whatever. I mean, which is just insanity if you ask me. I mean, you got to be blind, you know. But uh, yeah, I would love to see somebody take that on.
Oh, I'm glad you're pointing it out. Maybe we'll spark someone's interest to look more into these. Yeah, the animals of the past. How long ago the dinosaurs were here? I know I could segue into the one interesting painting that there might be a couple, but there's only one that I'm able to find right now, from our friend Angie Dragon. But there's a painting I can show at this moment that has animals or humans, and it looks like over your shoulder. It looks like, is that a brontosaurus?
Oh yeah, so yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
that, did you see the painting already in your DMs earlier? Did I message you? Just, you know what I'm talking about?
no, I didn't.
Okay, let me pull it up just so we have a reference point. But I actually want to just go right back to Dubay. Um, all participants, okay. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so
Oh yeah, okay.
we have this photo here. It's from 1566, I believe it's called The Suicide of Saul. I didn't really do my research. I didn't look into this painting, where it's at, what it's about, but I just am aware that it's a kind of it's one of the only things
I, I
vision
thought this was like Hannibal's army.
this painting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the giant armies and stuff.
this title is so weird. The Suicide of Saul.
This is definitely not the suicide of Saul. I,
Well, I
I don't know
mean,
what the hell they're
no,
talking
I
about.
I promise you it is the title of this painting though. Um, so
No, no, no. I think this is Hannibal's supposed to be Hannibal's army. I know this painting.
okay.
Yeah, Saul is not in this painting. But yeah, so you got the sauropod looking brontosaurus type animals in the back there, little teeny guys with people riding on their back.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
some coming
well,
out of the water too, if you zoom in. And you've read Marco Polo. Is that a viable little reference or no, in
you
your
know,
opinion?
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't quite remember, the thing with Marco Polo.
I think there's just a reference to him coming in on a caravan with dinosaurs involved.
Uh,
Um, I don't know what type was referenced in that one. So
Look, I mean, you know, I don't think there's any reason why not. Why, like, but there's got to be more, of course, to really say. I mean, of course, that is an absolute object of curiosity that there's, dinosaurs, things that look like dinosaurs, in that painting, from when's it from? 15th century or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1566, yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
So that's, I mean, Eric Dubay's fourth point as to why there is no dinosaurs is that children are taught the existence of dinosaurs through cartoons, not through bone inspection at school. I guess, we can agree that is the case. The cartoon thing is though what I'm, more leaning on right now. That is
Yeah.
all I'm given, or until you go and do the bone thing, which again I'm already claiming people don't do that. All they have is the cartoons, and
And movies.
the cartoons always say a long, long time ago, pre-existence of humans, and yet these few little cracks we're just referencing here do exist. There seems to be an overlap. Even the idea of like the Flintstones, to a degree, is the overlap of the human and the dinosaur. So that idea, that egregore is out there, and I like, I like to believe in it personally. Um,
Yeah, I think it's quite well, see, this is why I would love to see, somebody with, some ideas about when they lived. I'd love to see somebody like get on that.
yeah.
I wouldn't know where to start, but
Well, this
yeah,
you don't think this painting is a good place to start?
I think it's as good as any,
Mm,
it's
yeah,
something, you know.
it's very interesting to me. Someone made that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, like, uh, I think it's interesting, I'd love to, talk about, the claim that, all the dinosaur bones are actually dragons, right? Because you mentioned that earlier, and I've seen that a lot. And I would, just, I would just have to say, like, this, begs the question because we do have like uh, tons of, dinosaur, fossils, big, medium, little, they came in all sizes, right? They weren't all gigantic, 100-ton monsters,
Mhm.
there's all kinds, um, in any case, so anyway, so we have lots of in situ, in place, in the ground, articulated skeletons, or in various states of articulatedness. Not everything might be in place, but lots of it is. Um, so we have a lot of these examples um, of articulated skeletons. So, and these things bear absolutely zero resemblance to, dragons, in paintings and descriptions and like the, folklore and stuff like that. Zero anatomical resemblance, and the, even disarticulated skeletons or isolated bones or whatever. Um, these these things, you can't possibly make them fit uh, into the anatomy of dragons as they're portrayed, in art, in old art and stuff like that. You can't possibly cram a skeleton into that dragon shape, you know,
Okay.
with the wings and stuff like that. And it would be it's an anatomical impossibility, you know.
I
I mean, there's so, I mean, dinosaurs are, very diverse group, you know, of animals. I mean, there's the variety is enormous of different, completely different types. You know, one completely different group from the other. The big giant, sauropods, like Brontosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, these things are nothing alike. Of course. Uh, and to say that you have this enormous variety of skeletal structures, different skeletal structures, and to say that you can cram all that entire massive variety of different animals and their completely different skeletons into these dragons, from art. Uh, I mean, that's a pretty wild idea.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
I guess the
I
problem
mean, see, see, I mean, it's like, if somebody doesn't have the slightest understanding of anatomy, the anatomy of anything, right? Human or animal or something like that, if that doesn't play any part in their thinking when they see this kind of, they see these kinds of claims and stuff like that, I mean, that's a problem. That's a gap in their understanding, big one. You know, if people, and of course, I mean, you could again say that's some sort of specialized learning. But I mean, I learned that stuff on my own, just for fun, anatomy, stuff like that, skeletal musculature, stuff like that. Um, so even just a basic understanding of anatomy, would just kind of, you know, make anyone shake their head at such a claim, right? The dinosaurs are dragons, like that you could somehow get the one out of the other, you know.
yeah, I'm the guy that tries to see everyone's point of view. Try my best to see where some people are sometimes stuck in their way of thinking. Some people can't see what we're seeing, things like that. And
Well, yeah. Well,
I
I
hear
mean,
you. I hear you loud and clear, but I just know the one of the big problems probably is just the lack of the dinosaurs being in any folklore and any stories and anywhere. But we're saying, like one or two places here fell through the cracks, but um the dragons are everywhere. You have stories of that, and yeah, all we have is that they were here prehistorically, prior to everything, and it's just in a lot of ways probably doesn't jive with people's understanding of what's going on here, and the people that dismissed evolutionary stuff, thinking at least.
well, okay. Think about it this way, okay? In the case of the dragons and stuff, okay, you have I guess there's sort of accounts, of course, it is everywhere, then all the stuff in art, sculpture. So you have all that, uh, but then on the other hand, you have these, fossil skeletons, fossil bones, fossils of all kinds, which are tangible things. Accounts are not tangible. Art is not ultimately really a tangible thing. It's somebody product of somebody's, let's say, imagination, or whatever it is. Maybe they're copying from nature. Who the hell knows? Right? Maybe they're drawing the dragon, live. I don't know. Uh, but on the other hand, you have a tangible thing. All these mountains and tons and stacks of fossil bones from all over the earth. Yeah, that have been found by uh, you know through the decades and it's people have been digging this stuff up forever, and I think the as it were Native Americans here in North America, do have accounts and sort of tales of what you could only call dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's just
And they it's very interesting that the Native Americans do uh recognize the existence of these momentous sort of beasts. They weren't trying to describe or classify them scientifically as we think of science now. That's not what they were doing, but they it was a part of, as it turns out, a part of like these Native American cultures. All of them, I have no idea, but at least some, and these Native American tribes. Okay, so when around the in the 1880s, and after that, even after the turn of the century, so these Native American groups would actually, or individuals would actually lead the prospectors, the fossil prospectors, the guys who dug up all the dinosaurs in like Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, Montana, all these, so and shipped them shipped them all to places like the Smithsonian or the American Museum in New York, etc.
Mm-hmm. But they were led by Native Americans.
Yeah, they were led to these finds, these skeletons, by Native Americans. They were like the guides.
Yeah, very
they
interesting.
knew exactly where they were. And some of these were like there's the stuff on display. In some of the most famous museums.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. I mean,
well, that is discussed in that one of the books that I recommended to you, the one about Native Americans, written by that what's her name, Adrian Mayor, Mayor. It's like fossil. It's like Indians, fossils, and the first Americans, something like that title. She discusses exactly, all about. It's very interesting because it's all about North America instead of somewhere else, and the Native Americans. So very interesting.
And this book alone will put the rest, all of Dubay's claims here. If anyone was probably to read it, take the time. These two books here you've recommended. Davio, on this audio, we have 4 minutes left. So I'm going to ask a question, and if you can try and answer it
Sure.
best you can. So can you tell me about any like digs? Have you personally been on a dig or like, been around an excavation site? How's that go?
Yeah. I've been on many, and and I've also found mountains of fossils. For example, when I lived up in northern Kentucky, just on my own, just for fun. Anyway, but yeah, I've been on many digs through the Denver Museum. One of which they found a complete skeleton of a stegosaurus.
Oh, okay. A stegosaurus, you said?
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you said hold on.
No,
Yeah.
I was giggling.
No. Okay, so I was on a dig. This was in 1992 or three. Okay, so I was like, I think I was like, maybe like I was still in high school. Anyway, and so this was out in Canyon City, Colorado, which is kind of west, southwestern Colorado, and yeah, one of the guys that worked at the museum, this guy named Brian Small from Texas. He was a really funny guy. He had he looked every inch the Texan. But anyway, so he was walking. Nobody had found anything. We had been there like a week or something, and nobody had found anything of any other than just like fragments and stuff of no importance. Anyway, and this guy's just walking sort of down a dry riverbed, and here's the cliffside, and he just we all have like a rock hammer with us. Anyway, he's just like kind of bored and sick of walking around, not finding anything, stuff, and he sinks his rock hammer into the side of the it's just like this sort of loose clay. This is the Morrison Formation out in that area, the Morrison Formation, so-called formation, whatever. Any case, he sinks his rock hammer into the side of the frickin', in the dirt, and out comes this rolling this little, little black vertebra.
Like,
Yeah, and that turned out to be a whole Stegosaurus, the most complete, I do believe, that's ever been found.
wow, it's like a scene
Yeah,
of a movie.
and this thing had, okay, like it, had this. It was from the skull, to the freaking end of the tail. It had like everything.
Cool. Yeah,
Um,
minute 30 if you got anything to add.
yeah, yeah. Well, so this thing, it took weeks, to you know because you have to basically dig under it, and then put this plaster jacket over it. So this thing
Wow.
had been airlifted out by, I think it was like a Navy helicopter or something like that. It was a huge helicopter with like two propellers, like military helicopter, airlifted this damn thing out. Yeah, and it's on display, I believe, in this place called Dinosaur Ridge. I think it's Morrison, Colorado.
But that's so right there, you're start to finish, you were part of an, the entire
Yeah,
process,
yeah, yeah, yeah. They have a cast on display at the Denver Museum. It's not real. It is a cast.
But
But it's a beautiful. I mean, you can look this up on the internet. This Stegosaurus, this particular thing,
man,
this
Davio,
very fossil.
this insight though, it needed to be get out there. So I really appreciate this. This has been good. I'm expecting to be cut off, so I'll text you. I don't know. We'll go from there. Maybe done for today.
Okay. The business with Richard Owen, I think Richard Owen is probably rolling over in his grave, now that he's found like an entire new generation of haters. you know
Yeah.
he was kind of a fuddy-duddy, in his own lifetime. uh uh he was kind of old-fashioned, even as
Again, what's Sir Richard Owen? His main claim to fame would be,
well, as the one who coined the word dinosaur,
yeah. And pre
even
prior
though he
prior to
did
that,
nothing, but
in your research prior to that, what were they calling these bones, fossils? Do you know? Or has that been swept away?
well, I mean, the thing is like, when you're talking about, fossils is a very, very broad, thing, I mean, there was a debate, for many centuries, in the literature, as to like what a fossil is. What's a fossil, right? Are they the remains of organic, uh, once living creatures that have been turned to stone, or are they things that are produced by the earth, like in as a like a sort of some sort of like imitation of living things, like shells, uh, mollusks, even bones and stuff. That was a long held, theory, if you will, that they're just something like produced within the earth, like gemstones and minerals and stuff like that, and they just happen to resemble uh, things that are kind of recognizable. Obviously the organic theory, has won the day. Since there's demonstrably, there obviously are the remains of once dead things.
Yeah, when I hear that, it makes me feel like it's just purposely people have to make subjects black and white when clearly there's room for both. There's evidence of stuff that does get formed here in different ways, like you just listed off, and then there's also fossils that are leftover bones. Like it
Yeah,
both happen. No.
yeah. So I beg your pardon. What was your initial question? I kind of got off,
No, you didn't. No,
something
not
of
at
a
all.
tangent,
I
but
think
it was related to what you were saying.
Well, the idea that prior to this guy, who I also cut you off in your whole line of thought of,
Oh yeah,
Richard Owen, who he is, but prior to him, what were
yeah.
they calling things before dinosaurs?
So yeah, the point I was making was that even when you're just talking about like fossil bones, in particular, that's still a very broad category of objects. I mean, they could be mammal, they could be fish, large whales, whale bones, or dinosaurs. I mean, it could be a whole lot of things, the classifying, stuff like dinosaurs, as some sort of like reptilian, of, in the reptilian sort of category of, a class or whatever. That was sort of the innovation, if you will, because taxonomy, the classifying of animals like in relation to each other, like families, like reptiles, mammals, fish, stuff like that. So the classifying of these things in some sort of like systematic way, that's really a product of the 18th century. There's a very famous figure in the history of like paleontology, Georges Cuvier. Do you know his name?
Trouvier.
French fellow. So he's one of the kind of innovators in the 18th century, who started trying to classify things according to sort of like their types or species and stuff like this, like all these categories: species, class, phylum, kingdom. That method of classification hadn't been around forever. It really was kind of a development, kind of in the 18th century, the sort of age of reason, as they call it, or the age of the encyclopedists, right, who are just trying to gather up all the known, all of what's known, and put it between, the two covers of the book. Anyway, so there really wasn't, to my knowledge, I mean, there wasn't any kind of like specific designation for, particular, various types of fossilized animal remains, whether it's, dinosaur, mammal, or otherwise. They didn't have like specific names, even like, calling them dragons. I don't see like exactly the evidence of that. Like, if anything, these things were, fossil bones were associated with the heroes, sort of the gods and heroes of like antiquity, like Greek, like these Greek heroes, or these Greek or mythological monsters. Those are the things they were assigned to.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Not dragons. Dragons is I mean, I'm not even sure, like, like that it was never just, these things were just called dragons. They were the griffin, the cyclops, the hydra, the centaur, stuff like that, or they were the remains of like, of like, the defeated Greek, what do you call them? The Titans.
Yeah.
The Titans.
Mm-hmm. The fallen
Things like
Titan.
that.
Yeah.
So when Richard Owen came along and called that class of animals dinosaurs, he was making at least two different statements, right? He was associating them with the class of vertebrates we call reptiles, and the dino just means terrible, terrible lizard, dinosaurs. So they're just monstrous lizards, is all it's kind of it's a bit of a comical name to
Sure.
give
Yeah.
these things. Yeah, bit of a caricature, be
And
sure.
and he was the man to do it. He was
Well, yeah, he is the one who did it. Yeah. Uh, there was, like dinosaur, there had been descriptions and, um, and recorded discoveries of dinosaur fossils, prior to Richard Owen calling them dinosaurs. But like, they were assigned to, other kinds of animals, whether it was like giant humans, giants, or, they were kind of misidentified, and
yeah.
miscategorized, if you will.
You're a much more astute historian than I am, and I don't know where you are with other claims about history. Certain things being not exactly real, but we're told they were, or you are able to really go down the line backwards. And the point here is, a lot of times lately, you'll find groups of people that'll kind of make claims like anything more than the last 150, 200 years, like the 1800s and to today, we can work with, but anything prior to that is kind of up for grabs. Hard to really make sense of what really did happen in the past. And with
Yeah.
that in mind, it makes perfect sense to me that we would be reclassifying everything. If you really like the idea of like a really hard reset that some people tend to buy into, whereas might not be very realistic to buy into such an idea, but there would be the idea this is the time where we're coming back out of who knows what happened, but we're reestablishing things, we're reestablishing territories, governments, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of migration coming over to America and setting things up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Reinventing the historical narrative and all that.
right. Yeah, and so this
Yeah.
falls right in line.
Yeah, and I am certainly, on board with that line of thinking. I'm definitely a fan of, guys like, Anatoly Fomenko, you know, uh, you know, and his like kind of, the other guy he, does research with, Morozov, I think is his name.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the timeline, I think there's, quite a mountain of evidence that it has been monkeyed with a great deal. The calendar has been monkeyed with a great deal. So obviously, the stuff that we're presented with in our day and age, is not the product of some sort of historical record that has been, fastidiously preserved and handed down to us.
No,
Obviously not, you
no.
know. Obviously not. I mean, we got
Pretended to.
trees. You got trees that are, miles and miles in circumference. Entire melted buildings, melted cities. Just I mean, it's nuts. I mean, what the hell does one make of that? How do you put together some story out of that? I have no idea.
Mm.
And that's, back to the sort of question of, when did these dinosaurs and stuff, or the giant mammals, when did they really live? When were they really around? Was this recent? Was it super long ago? I have no idea. And the dating methods, are of no help in, figuring that out.
Well, how long does it take for the fossil to turn into fossil fuel?
I don't know. I mean, like, I've never held a, like a fossil, over like just an open flame and waited for it to turn into gasoline. I mean, well, I mean, the thing with fossil, so-called fossil fuels is pretty comical. I mean, uh,
Sure.
I'm of the, opinion that petroleum is just a resource, or a mineral that's kind of like, there's tons of it, and it's probably something that's renewed, self-renewing, just
I'd co-sign all that. Yeah.
within the system of the operations of the earth, if you will, whatever.
Right.
But it is funny, of course, the associating of fossils with petroleum, again, plays into the scarcity argument. That's a scarce natural resource, and once we use it all up, there will be none left, and all that stuff. And so we have to limit the use and limit people's, of course, I mean, they love to limit, the food is scarce, everything's so scarce, right?
Right. Yeah, we're on the brink of that amazing conversation about just mindset in general, and we're basically taught this scarcity mindset, and we don't realize it until someone points it out, and
Yeah.
you start to see it for what it is. We have
Yeah.
abundance here. It should be an abundance mindset. It seems like that would be the more beneficial mindset to learn from a young age and carry forward. There's an abundance here for all of us. That
Well, of course. I mean, all the limitations imposed on us are deliberate limitations. Of course, I mean, we're being starved out, limited in our means of travel, technology. Yeah, I mean, we're deliberately, kind of held back, from our, from the potential of what's here, which is plenty of everything to go around for everybody. So, but back to the question of, fossil fuels, nobody has ever, demonstrated or shown a fossil becoming petroleum, right? This is just an association, that it's an arbitrary association, that played into the scarcity, the supposed scarcity of the natural resource, of petroleum oil.
and conveniently, a household name doesn't it, get linked back to Rockefeller's kind of funding, coming up with the idea, and then teaching
Yeah.
it, to everyone. It's like you said, no one's seen it with their own eyes and never seen the conversion of fossil to fuel, but we're told that's what happens.
That's what happens. It's magic. Don't ask questions. Yes,
This wasn't ever intended to be the most thorough conversation ever. I wonder, what bases did we miss, if any? And if we didn't, can we kind of just sum up? If you think you're an unbiased guy looking at the whole conversation as fairly as possible, what's like a summary of how to look at fossils and the dinosaur conversation, and whatever. I'll try and help you out there, because I think I'm kind of in agreement with you, and yeah, that we might have hit all what we want to talk about here, Davio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I mean, the interpreting of all the fossil record and stuff like that can go a lot of ways, obviously, in terms of certainly in terms of when these things lived, and just what the hell is going on and everything. But I think, I would just stress personally, I would just stress that, I feel bad. I feel sorry. I feel sorry for people who just dismiss all this, dinosaurs and fossils, just completely out of hand, as either just kid stuff, or that it's all just a scam, that we're just being lied to again about yet another thing. I feel sorry for those people, because they are really missing a big, piece of the picture. It's like, why don't they just stop caring about dogs and cats? This is arbitrary as that. Cats are for kids, And dogs are for idiots, who believe anything.
Interesting. Yeah, I see your point.
I mean, like these things are, they're absolutely, bizarre and strange, and there's such an enormous variety of them. Whether it's the extinct mammals or the dinosaurs, there's all kinds of friggin' animals that are no longer around and apparently haven't been around for a while. And I mean, I suppose these must be the same, you've got to be the same people that just, kind of, they can go walking in nature, but they've got their, they got their face glued to the phone the entire time they're out walking. They're not looking around, they're not examining anything, they're not reflecting on what is around them. Right now, they just rather look at the phone and oh, so you got the message on Facebook or whatever.
No,
It's that. Just
certainly
like head in the sand.
you're anyone that might take the time to listen to this, you're certainly sharing a good lesson here for all, regardless of if you fell for this particular one or not. It can be applied elsewhere. Don't just listen to what you see on your phone, and run
No
with
kidding, right? I mean, Lord.
it.
Yeah, I mean, good information is, as we know, hard to come by. It's the hardest thing to come by, I've found. Yeah, good information.
And then the other side, the best information is simple though. So maybe it isn't so hard to come by.
No, but it requires a lot of sifting, as you know. Got to sift through just a mountain of nonsense, and and you have to, and you can only learn, I think, to tell the good from the bad, the true from the false, and all that, the valid from the invalid. From doing a lot of sifting and stuff. It does get easier to see through something. The more you do it, but it takes practice, like so to speak, like anything.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment towards like the pattern recognition of
Yeah,
sifting through the information, but what you're pointing out here is like, I'm just as liable of doing this, or susceptible of doing this as anyone, is finding a pattern about particular subject, seeing the bad guys, the controllers of the information, seeing their footprint, their fingerprint on the subject, and then
yeah,
saying, "Uh-oh, it's been tainted. Just
right,
back away.
right,
It's not even real." Yet
totally.
that's not necessarily true. Just because they put their hand on it doesn't mean there isn't something to be garnered from it that is real. And
Well, I think that's a really good point because it's not the fossils and the remains of all these like extinct animals that are fake. It's the story that's told about them. That's where the lie is.
hmm,
Evolution and all that stuff. All the pseudoscience that surrounds it. Stupid movies and all that kind of stuff. That's where the lie is. The lie is not that the fossils, are just a bunch of fakes and plaster casts and ground up chicken bones and stuff like this. That's not the case. It's the way we've been lied to is the story of the so-called story of evolution, the so-called history of the earth, of the evolution of life on earth. That's the thing where that's the thing that has no evidence for the claim, to back up the claim.
yeah,
And it's a big claim, right?
or the evidence doesn't support the claim.
Right. It doesn't support, in fact, the fossil record, you know, tells tells the opposite story. It doesn't, there's no evidence of all the transitional fossils, species and stuff that Darwin and every believer in Darwinism ever since claims, that there should be. That's precisely what's missing, is all the transitional fossils. There isn't any. There really isn't. they can put together like some little charts and stuff where they show like the evolution, so-called evolution of the horse, or the evolution of a, you know, a pig-like thing into a whale. But these things are, you know, they have no direct association. That these are arbitrary connections that the so-called scientists are putting together. You know,
Did make a big deal though at one point, a big campaign about the missing link, is what we're
oh,
talking. I,
sure.
I believe, right? They have sometimes claimed they found the missing link that did tie things together, and
Well,
then
that's for human evolution.
oh, was that what they? Okay, mixed and
But
messed.
you should have, you know, a gazillion missing links for every, you know, everything, bugs, birds, everything should
Right.
have like a whole story in the fossil record. If these things truly did evolve from, you know, something else, that you know, a completely different species evolved into another species. You know, I mean, but like, see, I mean, you gotta, yeah, you know, you always have to remember that their entire premise, you know, is that the Big Bang, you know, blew up for no reason, uh, you know, and and somehow created everything out of nothing, and that life on Earth started, you know, from nothing, you know, inorganic material suddenly became a living thing, whether it's their famous, you know, the single-celled organism, you know, this common ancestor of literally everything. I mean, the story they're telling us and asking us to believe is the most preposterous fairy tale you can
Hmm.
possibly imagine when you put it into like, you know, plain terms.
Sure.
Take away all the jargon and all the gobbledygook of, you know, science. Yeah, I mean, what they're asking you to believe is like in fucking like magic, fairy tales stuff.
Oh yeah, you know, my take on it is there's can be decoded just as religious text can be decoded to maybe a simpler story that has some truth to it, you know. Uh I don't know. That's just how I can look at some things that come from out of mainstream science. And I like to decode origin stories to a degree, play the
Yeah,
play the role of God and being like, okay, how does God start the process of creating what, you know, it's impossible. You just, you know, theorize. But
yeah,
for me, it's always the same thing. It's like you're God, you're bored, so you create something. This it comes from the line of like being human and having babies and all and feelings and emotions and stuff. These thoughts, but it's like basically it happens when you have a creation, you then want to share it as the next line of things that happen. You want to share it with something else other than yourself. If you just play by yourself all day long, eventually it runs its course. And so that's the idea of creating another. And eventually the other always becomes the fallen one. He's no longer the original seed. He's no longer the first one. And all these stories blend together. And this is not the time for me to try and go into all this. Uh, that's
yeah.
you know, I feel like there's something to that with science, the science version of the Big Bang and all that. You know, it can be
Yeah,
played with. It's supposed to be fun. It's not definitely not real. It's not. It's more of a metaphor or allegory than reality. I mean, I think I can make that argument somehow if I tried.
yeah. Well, sort of. I mean, but see you know, the thing that like, you know, the evolutionists, you know, and the physicists and stuff are asking us to believe is that, you know, all the laws of nature, all the forces of nature or whatever, you know, are all directed by, you know, blind chance, right? That there's no design, there's no purpose in anything at all. We misinterpret everything, think, you know, to say that, you know, anything has a purpose. Nothing has a purpose. It's all guided by blind, sheer chance, right? That's supposedly how everything has, evolved from their single-celled organism. It's like rolling the dice and getting lucky, a billion times in a row. You get seven every time, a billion times in a row.
Well, it's
That's what they want us to think. So, that's the materialist claim.
the soulless version, soulless description of reality,
I mean, completely.
you
Yeah.
know. But
Uh,
part of
but
me
they
is my
find
part
it.
of my personal theory that I'm trying to figure out how to articulate actually speaks to how you need. I don't know if you need it, but how it's been so far is what we can see and what the past has looked like. These why you need the red and the blue of versions of reality, one with purpose, this other existential version, and how the learning lessons are in between these viewpoints. Again, I got to stop, and this is not what this conversation is about. So I'll have to learn how to do this. I'm going to keep talking to people, stay on course with what we're talking about here. And so you're just basically commenting the evolutionists, route is easily, I don't know where we first started and got off track here. At the end of our talks here, we're at 7 minutes left.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't really, nothing's leaping to mind, that I need to add. I think the last couple of points that, we just discussed really, really kind of wraps it up for me,
Sure.
that, yeah, that fossils and stuff, they're just as important, as the melted buildings and the giant trees and the giant human skeleton, if they're human, the giant skeletons of giants and stuff. I mean, just as important, just as relevant. I mean, if you can care about one, why can't you care about the other? I mean, I don't understand,
Yeah.
And if the dinosaurs are fake, well, why aren't the giants, the giant skeletons of giants, why aren't those fake? How do you know? How do you know? Those aren't ground up chicken bones,
Mm.
Make your own giants, right? Out of chicken bones.
I hear you. And
So,
there is a lot of things that we talked about with the Giants as well. Big conversations there on like, why the diversions of whatever the truth is, how it's kind of changed, and you can kind of see over the last 100 years how there would be conversations in the mainstream fields about tall people, giants, and then all of a sudden it kind of all got taken out of the conversations. And yeah, it's like
well, it doesn't fit the Darwinian, story of human evolution. All that stuff doesn't fit in, so you got to get rid of it.
but you can't erase our memories that quickly. So it's like they had to wait almost until there was no longer anyone with any more, like no longer like the passer, like from parent to child storylines. And then it was with the new generations that had no recollection, no grandparents, anyone talking about giant people. And
Yeah.
then officially, then it also gets taken out of like the history books, and whatever skulls or fossils were remaining are now no longer talked about. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that whole thing, it plays into how they rewrite. Whoever's doing all this rewriting of history, it's very calculated timelines of when the generation passes and there's no longer any way to really have a conversation about it, then they can officially change the whole narrative. It's like it's something I kind of observe.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're it's all pretty insidious. I mean, I don't see how this is supposed to be helpful in it, to us in any way, obviously.
Well, so my whole thing that I can't figure out how to ever talk about, because I want to include everything physical, spiritual outlooks on everything, is like I make this comparison of the past, like our memory. It's like, do you have crystal clear recollection of everything that's ever happened to you in your life? And I guess there's some people that might, but the majority, the answer is no. And as above, so below, as within, as without, kind of using that line of thinking. If I'm creating this analogy, there's a mirror between our memory and history, and how, for good reason, it might be getting washed away, like the sands of time.
Maybe.
And it's part of the game. It's part of the game. It works that way. And the devil's in the details. And so we really get hung up on our prideful take on the past. And maybe that's why we're not progressing to, as a collective. And to just simplify like the patterns and the observations, and I keep coming up with this term, like the new foundational truth of what we can at least agree on. It's really this idea I keep playing with. It's like, let's get this agreeable place found, and then from there the theories can bounce off, but at least we can all determine these statements align about these subjects, about Earth, like the sun, like, is the sun 93 million miles away? Things of this, narrow it down to a place where a lot of people can co-sign, that are open-minded and willing to relook at everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's all being chipped away at, of course.
But we need the iron sharpening iron, which was we attempted to do here, where it was like you're sharpening the understanding on this whole dinosaur conversation, and yeah, it takes a refined take, and it takes help from others to see that. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, look, I mean, I guess if I wouldn't have had, the experience that I, did have, I'm sure I would have jumped on the Dinosaurs Never Existed bandwagon too. Just it's like, right? Because like it's like, if you believe all these other conspiracies and stuff, well, here's another one. Sure, okay, right? The
Well,
lies, the never-ending lies. So,
well, Davio, I appreciate your time. I really do. I think this went well, and I hope we can probably do it again. Maybe follow up with this, see how this goes, or talk about something else. But thanks for giving your time here.
yeah, maybe if you get like any, interesting responses or something, something worth like addressing, something like that could be cool.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll see. If anybody watches this,
yeah, we'll see if anyone. That was good. Good.
On display at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. The bones are said to be kept behind heavy closed doors, but a plaster copy is exhibited in their place. China is a major producer of bones and fossils. Zigong Dino Ocean Art Company Limited, in the state of Sichuan, is a major supplier to the natural history museums all over the world, exhibited in Peru, Argentina, Vancouver, Cincinnati, Chicago, and other places. General instructions for the process of manufacturing fossils can be found online. Chicken, frog, dog, cat, horse, and pig's bones are used as fossil materials. The bones are crushed and mixed with glue, resin, and plaster, and can then, if desired, be glued to a plate. Fractures in the fossil give it a natural look. These fractures are purposefully made and then repaired repeatedly to achieve the right effect. Even professors of paleontology have started to wonder. Alan Fiducia, professor of paleontology at the University of North Carolina, stated, "I have heard there is a fake fossil factory in northeast China, in Liaoning province, near the deposits where many of these recent alleged feather dinosaurs were found." In conclusion, 1. A complete dinosaur skeleton has never been found. 2. No independent researcher has seen a real dinosaur skull. 3. The paleontological scientific approach is built on hypotheses, while it is presented as natural science with an objective approach. 4. Children are taught the existence of dinosaurs through cartoons, not through bone inspection at school. 5. Only people with a special interest in the paleontological field seem to find dinosaur bones. Dinosaurs are yet another fictitious reality. This all leaves us with numerous fundamental questions.
Oh, wait, one more thing before I do, Mr. Reynolds. Have you seen these fossil records?
Have I Huh?
Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures?
Well, no. I mean, no.
Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. You get your information from a book written by men you've never met. And you take their words as truth, based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith?
Come on. Look, I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that. Like, come on. That's a false equivalency.
Just answer the question, Mr. Reynolds.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
I rest my case.
Oh, that got me. Yeah.
Frank, do you want me to?
Put me over.
Yeah, all right.
What?
Well, we're going on the fence. I mean, that's a shadow of a doubt.
You actually don't believe in evolution anymore?
I don't know. He created a reasonable doubt. He makes you sound like a stupid science bitch.